The space around Earth was quiet until the morning, when everything changed. Lieutenant Colonel Jake Morrison stood in the command center, drinking his third cup of coffee. The screens around him showed the normal traffic of human ships moving between Earth and Mars. Everything seemed normal until the alarm started screaming. "Sir, we have contacts," shouted the young officer at the sensor station. Multiple contacts dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. Jake put down his coffee cup and walked to the main display. What he saw made his blood run cold. Hundreds of red ships were appearing in space, each one bigger than anything humans had ever built. They stretched across the darkness like a storm. Cloud made of metal and death. How many? Jake asked, his voice steady despite the fear growing in his chest. "Still counting, sir. At least 2,000 ships, maybe more." Jake had been a soldier for 20 years. He had fought in the Mars Colony War and the asteroid mining conflicts. He had seen battle and death and thought he knew what fear looked like. But this was different. This was not a human enemy. This was something else entirely. The alien ships were beautiful in a terrible way. Their hulls were deep red like dried blood, and they moved through space with perfect formation. Each ship was shaped like a blade, designed to cut through space and anything that stood in their way. Jake could see weapon ports along their sides, more guns than any human ship had ever carried. "Get me Defense Secretary Harper," Jake ordered, "and wake up the president. Tell them we have a situation." Within minutes, the secure communication system was buzzing with activity. Leaders from every nation on Earth were joining the emergency meeting. President Amanda Wells appeared on the main screen, her face pale but determined. "What are we looking at, Colonel?" she asked. "Unknown alien fleet, Madam President. They're not responding to our communication attempts. Ship count is now over 3,000 and still rising." Admiral Vextar Krell stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the small blue planet grow larger on his screens. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and eyes like black stones. His uniform was decorated with medals from 100 conquered worlds. This would be conquest number 101. "Status report," he commanded in his cold voice. "The fleet is in position, Admiral. All ships ready to begin the cleansing operation." Krell nodded. The humans had built a small civilization on this world and a few nearby planets. They had primitive weapons and ships that moved slowly through space. They would die quickly, like all the others. "Open a channel to the planet," he ordered. On Earth, every television, radio, and communication device suddenly came alive with the same message. The voice was mechanical and cold, speaking perfect English with no emotion. "People of Earth, I am Admiral Vextar Krell of the Zephyrian Royal Fleet. Your world has been selected for cleansing. You have 72 hours to surrender completely. All military forces must power down. All leaders must present themselves for processing. Any resistance will result in the complete destruction of your planet." The message repeated in every human language. Then the screens went dark dot in the Pentagon bunker. Defense Secretary Lessa Harper stared at the silent screens. Around her, military. Officers and government officials sat in shocked silence. Finally, someone spoke. "What do we do?" President Wells stood up slowly. She was a small woman with gray hair and kind eyes, but there was steel in her voice when she spoke. "We fight." "Madam President," said General Marcus Stone, "their fleet is massive. Our entire Space Force has maybe 200 ships. They have thousands." "Then we fight with 200 ships," Wells replied. "We fight with everything we have." "Captain." Ryan Torres was on the bridge of his destroyer when the alien message came through. He was a young man with dark hair and quick eyes, known for his ability to think fast in dangerous situations. His ship, the Liberty, was one of the newest in the human fleet. "Sir," said his communications officer, "we're getting orders from Earth Command. All ships are to prepare for combat operations." Ryan looked at the display showing the alien fleet. His ship was fast and well armed by human standards, but it was tiny compared to the red monsters waiting at the edge of the solar system. "How long until they reach Earth?" he asked. "At their current speed, 18 hours, sir." Ryan nodded. 18 hours to prepare for a war they could not win. But they would try anyway, because that was what humans did. They fought even when fighting was hopeless. Back on the alien flagship, Admiral Krell watched the human ships beginning to move. They were forming into battle groups, tiny clusters of metal and courage facing his massive fleet. He had seen this before. Some species tried to fight before they surrendered. It never lasted long. "Shall we begin the attack, Admiral?" asked his second-in-command. "Not yet," Krell replied. "Let them see what they face first." He gave an order, and one of his dreadnoughts moved forward. It was a ship designed to crack planets, its main gun capable of destroying mountains. The dreadnought aimed at Earth's moon and fired once. The beam of energy struck the lunar surface and carved a canyon 50 miles long and 10 miles deep. The scar was visible from Earth with the naked eye. The message was clear: surrender or die. But the humans did not surrender. Instead, something unexpected happened. Military bases around the world began to activate. Weapons that had been hidden for decades emerged from underground bunkers. Ships that had been disguised as civilian vessels revealed their true nature. President Wells appeared on every screen on Earth. Her voice was calm but firm. "Citizens of Earth, we face an enemy that wants to destroy us. They think we will surrender because we are afraid. They are wrong. We are afraid, but we will not surrender. We will fight for our world, our families, and our freedom. We will show them what humans do when someone threatens everything we love." The alien fleet waited for the surrender that never came. Instead, they received a message from Earth. It was short and simple: "Come and take it." Admiral Krell stared at the message for a long moment. In 3,000 years of conquest, no species had ever responded to his ultimatum with defiance. They begged, they pleaded, they offered tribute, but they never challenged the royal fleet. These humans were different. They were going to fight. Krell smiled coldly. It would make the victory more interesting. The first battle happened near Mars. Captain Ryan Torres led 12 human ships against a Zephyrian scouting force of 30 vessels. The aliens expected an easy victory. They had fought this same battle 1,000 times against 1,000 different species. Ryan's ship, the Liberty, moved through space with the other human vessels. They were small and fast compared to the alien ships, but they carried less armor and fewer weapons. On paper, it should have been a massacre. "Enemy ships in range," reported his weapons officer, Lieutenant Amy Foster. She was young and nervous, but her hands were steady on the controls. "All ships, this is Torres." Ryan spoke into his communication system. "Remember the plan. Hit hard, hit fast, and don't give them time to think." The Zephyrian commander, Sub-Admiral Vex, watched the human ships approach. They moved in a strange pattern, not the orderly formation that civilized species used. They seemed to dance through space, each ship moving independently. "Begin the attack," Vex ordered. "Standard formation. Destroy them quickly." The alien ships opened fire with their energy weapons. Bright beams of light cut through space, striking at the human vessels. But the humans were not where the aliens expected them to be. They twisted and turned, moving like fish in water rather than ships in space. "They fight like animals," one of the alien officers observed. "All the better," Vex replied. "Animals are easily killed." But the humans were not easy to kill. They fought with a desperate creativity that the aliens had never seen before. When Lieutenant Foster's fighter was damaged, she did not retreat. Instead, she aimed her ship at the nearest alien vessel and accelerated. "Amy, no!" Ryan shouted over the communication system. "Tell my mom I love her," Amy replied. Then she cut the communication and rammed her ship into the alien destroyer. The explosion lit up space like a small sun. The alien ship, 10 times larger than Amy's fighter, broke apart and died. The human pilot died too, but she had taken 300 aliens with her Dot Major Sam Cullens, watched the explosion from his own ship. He was an older man with gray hair and scars from previous battles. He had seen many young soldiers die, but Amy's sacrifice filled him with cold anger. "All fighters, follow me," he ordered. "We're going to make them pay." The human pilots followed Collins in a charge that defied all military logic. They flew straight at the alien ships, firing their weapons and screaming battle cries. When their weapons ran out, they used their ships as weapons. Collins aimed his fighter at the alien command ship. The aliens tried to shoot him down, but he was too fast and too determined. At the last second, he ejected from his ship and watched it crash into the alien bridge. The alien commander, Vex, died in the explosion. His last thought was confusion. These humans fought like madmen, caring nothing for their own lives. Back on Earth, Dr. Elena Rodriguez worked in her laboratory, studying pieces of alien technology that had been recovered from the battle. She was a brilliant scientist with dark hair and intense eyes. She had been working without sleep for 3 days, trying to understand how the alien ships worked. "There," she said to herself, pointing at the readings on her computer screen. "Their shields have a weakness." She had discovered that the alien energy shields vibrated at a specific frequency. If human weapons could match that frequency, they could punch through the alien defenses. Elena sent her findings to Colonel Morrison, who was coordinating Earth's defense. Within hours, human engineers were modifying their weapons to exploit the alien weakness. The second battle was different. Admiral Krell had sent a larger force to finish what the scouts had started. He expected to find the wreckage of the human fleet and a planet ready to surrender. Instead, he found human ships equipped with new weapons. The energy beams that had once bounced harmlessly off alien shields now cut through them like knives. Through paper. "Impossible," Krell muttered, watching his ships take damage. How did they learn so quickly? The answer came from his intelligence officer. "Admiral, they have been analyzing our technology. They adapt faster than any species we have encountered." Krell felt a cold fear in his chest. The humans were not just fighting back. They were learning. Every battle taught them something new, and they used that knowledge to become more dangerous. Captain Torres, now commanding a larger ship after the Liberty was destroyed, led the human fleet in a new kind of battle. They no longer fought like a traditional navy. They fought like a pack of wolves, coordinating their attacks and supporting each other. "Target their command ship," Torres ordered. "If we can take out their leader, the rest will be confused." The human ships swarmed around the alien command vessel like bees around a hive. They fired their modified weapons and launched boarding parties. The aliens, trained for ship-to-ship combat, were not prepared for humans who fought in the corridors of their own ships. Captain Helen Grant led one of the boarding parties. She was a tough woman with red hair and a fierce expression. She had trained for years in hand-to-hand combat, and she was not afraid to use those skills. "Move, move, move," she shouted as her soldiers cut through the alien ship's hull. "Take the bridge." The aliens inside the ship were tall and thin, built for the cold vacuum of space. They were not built for the brutal close-quarters fighting that humans specialized in. Helen's team fought through the ship's corridors, Using knives and guns and bare hands, the alien crew surrendered quickly. They had never faced an enemy that fought with such personal violence. Wars were supposed to be clean, fought with energy. Weapons at long range. These humans brought the war inside their ships and fought face to face. Hullen's team captured the alien ship's computer systems. Within hours, human technicians were downloading the enemy's tactical information. They learned about alien ship designs, weapon systems, and battle tactics. More importantly, they learned about the size of the alien fleet. The Royal Fleet had over 10,000 ships, each one capable of destroying a human city. But the humans also learned something else. The aliens were not used to fighting an enemy that fought back effectively. They're used to easy victories, Torres observed, reading the intelligence reports. They expect their enemies to surrender quickly. Then we'll give them a war they're not prepared for, replied Colonel Morrison. The third battle was a trap. The humans pretended to retreat, drawing the alien ships into an asteroid field. When the aliens followed, they found themselves surrounded by hidden human ships and automated weapons platforms. The aliens fought well, but they were not ready for the human tactics. The humans used the asteroids as cover, popping out to fire, and then disappearing again. They turned the space rocks into weapons, using gravity drives to hurl them at alien ships. Admiral Krell watched the battle from his flagship, his face growing darker with each report. His ships were taking heavy losses, and the humans were growing stronger with each engagement. They learned from every battle, his tactical officer reported. They share information instantly across their entire fleet. Each ship knows what every other ship has learned. Krell had conquered 100 worlds, but he had never faced an enemy like this. The humans were not just surviving his attacks. They were evolving, becoming more dangerous with each passing hour. Send a message to the High Command, he ordered. Tell them we need reinforcements. These humans are not like the other species. But even as he spoke, Krell knew the truth. The humans were not just different. They were dangerous. And they were getting stronger. The Royal Fleet had been built to crush planets. But Earth was not crushing. Earth was fighting back, and with each battle, the humans proved they were learning to fight better than their enemies. The war was just beginning, and already Admiral Krell was beginning to understand that he might have made a terrible mistake. News of the human resistance spread across the galaxy like wildfire. On distant worlds, alien slaves who had served the Zephyrian Empire for centuries whispered about the impossible. There was a species that was actually fighting back against the Royal Fleet, not just fighting, but winning battles. General Marcus Stone stood in the underground command center beneath New York City. Above him, the alien invasion had begun. Zephyrian ships filled the sky, dropping soldiers and war machines onto Earth's surface. But Stone was not worried. The humans had been preparing for this day for decades. All units, execute Plan Omega. He spoke into his communication device. Across the planet, cities that had seemed defenseless revealed their true nature. Streets opened up to reveal hidden weapons. Buildings that looked normal were actually fortified bunkers. Parks and playgrounds had concealed missile launchers that rose from the ground. The Zephyrian ground forces landed expecting to find a helpless population. Instead, they found a planet that had turned itself into a fortress. Every human civilian had been trained to fight. Every neighborhood had been prepared for war. In London, factory worker Bob Nash picked up his rifle and joined his neighbors in defending their street. He was not a soldier, but he had been preparing for this moment his whole life. The humans had known that aliens might come someday, and they had prepared accordingly. Remember, Bob told his friends, aim for the joints in their armor. That's where they're weakest. The Zephyrian soldiers were tall and strong, with advanced weapons and armor. But they were not prepared for the kind of fighting that humans specialized in. They were used to conquering civilized species that fought according to rules. Humans did not follow rules when their families were threatened. Captain Helen Grant had been promoted after her successful boarding action. Now she led a team of specialists whose job was to capture alien ships and steal their technology. They were called the Ghost Squad, and they moved through space like deadly shadows. Target acquired, Helen whispered into her communication device. She was floating in space outside a Zephyrian cruiser, wearing a stealth suit that made her nearly invisible. Her team cut through the ship's hull using modified alien cutting tools. They had learned to use the enemy's own technology against them. Within minutes, they were inside the alien ship, moving through its corridors like hunting cats. The alien crew never saw them coming. Helen's team moved in perfect silence, using knockout gas and stun weapons to disable the enemy. They were not interested in killing unless they had to. They wanted the ship and its information systems intact. Bridge secured, reported Lieutenant Danny Wright, Helen's second in command. He was a young man with quick hands and a talent for alien technology. Good, Helen replied. Download everything. I want their star maps, their communication codes, and their tactical databases. Back on Earth, Dr. Elena Rodriguez had been working day and night to understand the alien technology. Her laboratory was filled with pieces of captured alien equipment, all being studied and analyzed. She had made several breakthrough discoveries. Colonel Morrison, she called out as he entered her lab. I've got something important. Elena showed him her latest discovery. She had learned how to disrupt the alien shield systems completely. More than that, she had figured out how to make human weapons that were actually more powerful than the alien versions. How is that possible? Morrison asked. Their technology is advanced, but it's also inflexible, Elena explained. They build everything to work in one specific way. We can adapt our technology to exploit their weaknesses. This was the key difference between humans and aliens. The Zephyrians built perfect weapons for perfect situations. Humans built weapons that could be changed and improved as needed. When the situation changed, human weapons could change too. Morrison took Elena's new weapon, designs to the underground factories that had been built beneath Earth's major cities. These factories had been hidden for decades, waiting for the day when Earth might need to fight a war for survival. Now those factories roared to life, producing weapons and ships using both human and alien technology. The new hybrid weapons were more powerful than anything either species had built alone. Captain Torres stood on the bridge of his new ship, the Defiance. It was built using alien technology, but designed according to human principles. It was fast, tough, and deadly. Most importantly, it could be modified quickly as new situations arose. All ships, this is Torres, he spoke to the human fleet. We're going to show these aliens what happens when they threaten our home. The human fleet had grown larger and more powerful. They had captured dozens of alien ships and converted them for human use. They had also built new ships that combined the best of both technologies. The fourth major battle took place in Earth's orbit. Admiral Krell had brought his main fleet to finish the job personally. He was tired of losing ships to these primitive humans. He wanted to end the war quickly and move on to easier conquests. But the humans were no longer primitive. They fought with captured alien weapons and ships they had built themselves. They used tactics that the aliens had never seen before, because no other species had ever fought back this effectively. They're everywhere, reported the alien tactical officer. They're not fighting like a fleet. They're fighting like a swarm. Human ships attacked from all directions at once. They used small, fast vessels to distract the aliens while larger ships moved into position. They coordinated their attacks with perfect timing, hitting the aliens when they were least prepared. Torres led a group of fighters in a direct assault on Krell's flagship. The alien ship was huge and powerful, but it was not designed to fight dozens of small, fast opponents at the same time. All fighters, target the shield generators, Torres ordered. We're going to board that ship. The human fighters swarmed around the alien flagship like angry bees. They fired their weapons in coordinated bursts, overloading the alien shields and creating gaps in the defenses. Helen Grant led the boarding party that entered the alien flagship. Her ghost squad had become experts at fighting inside enemy ships. They moved through the alien corridors like they owned them, using the ship's own layout against its crew. The aliens fought back, but they were not prepared for the human style of warfare. Humans fought dirty, using every trick and advantage they could find. They turned off the ship's gravity and attacked the confused aliens in zero-gravity combat. Bridge secured, Helen reported. We've got their admiral. Admiral Krell found himself facing a human woman who looked at him with cold, determined eyes. He had expected to be tortured or killed, but Helen had other plans. You're going to help us, she told him. You're going to tell us everything about your empire. Krell laughed bitterly. You think you have won? The Royal Fleet has 10,000 ships. You have destroyed perhaps 100. You cannot win. Helen smiled grimly. We're not trying to win. We're trying to survive. And we're very good at surviving. The captured alien admiral was taken to Earth, where he was interrogated by human intelligence officers. They learned about the structure of the Zephyrian Empire, the location of their home worlds, and the weaknesses in their military organization. But the most important thing they learned was that the Zephyrians had never faced real resistance before. The Royal Fleet was designed to terrorize and conquer, not to fight a long, difficult war. They're bullies, Torres observed after reading the intelligence reports. They're used to picking on species that can't fight back. Then we'll show them. What happens when bullies meet someone who fights back? Replied General Stone. The humans began to change their strategy. Instead of just defending Earth, they started attacking Zephyrian supply lines and communication networks. They used the captured alien ships to move through space without being detected. The war was spreading beyond Earth's solar system. Human ships began appearing near other worlds, attacking Zephyrian installations and freeing alien slaves. The humans were not just fighting for their own survival anymore. They were fighting for the freedom of every species the Zephyrians had conquered. Admiral Krell, now a prisoner on Earth, watched the reports with growing horror. The humans were not just surviving his invasion. They were turning it into a galactic revolution. You have doomed yourselves, he told his human captors. Even if you defeat my fleet, the Empire will send more. They will not allow this rebellion to succeed. Colonel Morrison looked at the alien admiral with pity. You still don't understand. We're not rebelling against your empire. We're destroying it. The war was no longer about Earth. It was about every world the Zephyrians had conquered, every species they had enslaved, and every life they had destroyed. The humans had started something that could not be stopped. They had awakened the galaxy. The message spread through the galaxy's underground networks like electricity through wire. On 1,000 slave worlds, beings who had lived in fear for generations heard the impossible news. The humans were not just fighting the Zephyrian Empire. They were winning. Commander Kate Mitchell stood on the bridge of her ship, the Vengeance, as it approached the prison planet Keck 7. The planet was a gray, lifeless rock where the Zephyrians kept their most dangerous prisoners. Most of these prisoners were former rebels who had tried to fight the Empire and failed. Scanning the surface, reported her communications officer, Lieutenant Carl Hudson. I'm reading approximately 50,000 life forms in the prison compounds. Kate nodded grimly. 50,000 beings from dozens of different species, all imprisoned for the crime of wanting to be free. The Zephyrians had built this place to break the spirits of anyone who dared to resist their rule. "Begin the attack," Kate ordered. "Remember, precision strikes only. We're here to free prisoners, not create more casualties." The human ships descended toward the prison planet like avenging angels. They had learned to use captured Zephyrian technology to mask their approach, appearing on the alien sensors as friendly ships until it was too late. The prison guards were not prepared for an attack. No one had ever tried to assault a Zephyrian prison planet before. The Empire's reputation for ruthless punishment had always been enough to prevent such attempts. But the humans were not deterred by the Empire's reputation. They landed their ships and deployed their soldiers with military precision. Kate led her team through the prison corridors, using alien key codes they had captured to unlock cell after cell. The prisoners could not believe what they were seeing. Human soldiers, members of a species most of them had never heard of, were fighting through the prison to free them. Many of the prisoners were too weak to walk, but the humans carried them to safety. "Who are you?" asked a tall, blue-skinned alien as Kate helped him out of his cell. His name was Zex-9, and he had been imprisoned for leading a rebellion on his home world 20 years ago. "We're humans," Kate replied simply. "We're fighting the Empire." Zex-9's eyes widened. "Impossible. No one fights the Empire and survives." "We're still learning that," Kate said with a grim smile. "But we're getting better at it." The freed prisoners provided something more valuable than ships or weapons. They provided information. Many of them had been rebel leaders who knew the weaknesses of the Empire's defenses. Others were scientists and engineers who understood alien technology. Captain Paul Adams was a former television reporter who had become one of the human military's most effective weapons. He did not carry a gun or pilot a ship. Instead, he carried a camera and a communication device that could broadcast to every corner of the galaxy. "People of the galaxy," he spoke into his camera. "My name is Paul Adams. I'm a human from the planet Earth. 6 months ago, the Zephyrian Empire came to our world and demanded our surrender. We refused." Paul's broadcasts were being picked up by secret receivers on hundreds of worlds. The aliens who watched them saw something they had never seen before: successful resistance against the Empire. "The Empire wants you to believe that. Resistance is hopeless," Paul continued. "They want you to think that their power is absolute. But we have learned something important. They can be defeated, they can be beaten, and they can be driven from your worlds." The broadcasts showed footage of human victories. Alien viewers saw Zephyrian ships being destroyed, alien soldiers being captured, and human ships flying freely through space. More importantly, they saw freed prisoners from many different species fighting alongside the humans. On the planet Vel 3, a group of factory workers watched Paul's broadcast in secret. They had been slaves for 3 generations, producing weapons for the Empire. One of them, a young female named Kira 5, stood up slowly. "He's right," she said quietly. "We don't have to live like this." "Kira, no," whispered her friend. "If they catch us, they'll kill us all." "They're killing us already," Kira replied. "Just slowly." Within days, the factory workers of Vel 3 were sabotaging the weapons they produced. They introduced subtle flaws that would cause the weapons to malfunction in battle. They sent coded messages to the human fleet, providing information about Zephyrian military production. The same thing was happening on dozens of other worlds. The humans had proven that the Empire could be fought, and that proof was spreading like a virus through the galaxy's slave populations. President Amanda Wells sat in the White House bunker, reviewing reports from around the galaxy. The war had grown far beyond anything she had imagined when she first refused the alien ultimatum. "Madam President," said Secretary Harper, "we're receiving requests for aid from rebel groups on over 200 worlds. They want us to help them fight the Empire." Wells looked at the star map on her wall. Red dots showed Zephyrian-controlled worlds, while blue dots showed systems where rebellions were beginning. There were far more red dots than blue ones, but the blue dots were growing. "How many ships do we have available?" she asked. "About 800 combat vessels," replied Admiral Morrison. "But most of them are needed to defend Earth." Wells made a decision that would change the course of the war. "Send half our fleet to support the rebellions. We can't defend Earth if the Empire controls the rest of the galaxy." It was a dangerous gamble. Earth would be more vulnerable to attack, but the humans had learned that the best defense was often a strong offense. If they could spread the rebellion to enough worlds, the Empire would be too busy fighting fires to mount a major assault on Earth. Captain Torres led the first human expedition to the galaxy's core regions. His ship, the Defiance, was now the flagship of a small fleet of human and alien vessels. His crew included beings from a dozen different species, all united in their hatred of the Empire. "Captain," reported his new science officer, "an insectoid creature named Vic-2. We're approaching the Zephyrian supply depot at Col 7. Torres nodded. The depot was a major supply hub for the Empire's military forces. Destroying it would seriously damage their ability to wage war in this sector. "All ships, attack formation," Torres ordered. "Remember, we're not just fighting for Earth anymore. We're fighting for everyone." The attack on the supply depot was swift and decisive. The human-led fleet struck without warning, using tactics that the depot's defenders had never seen before. They fought with the desperation of beings who had nothing left to lose, and the skill of warriors who had been learning and adapting for months. The depot was destroyed, but more importantly, the humans rescued thousands of alien slaves who had been working there. These beings joined the growing rebellion, providing more ships, more soldiers, and more information about the Empire's weaknesses. Admiral Krell, still imprisoned on Earth, watched the reports with growing despair. The humans had done the impossible. They had turned his invasion into a galactic revolution. Everywhere his ships went, they found rebellions and resistance. "You don't understand what you've done," he told Colonel Morrison during one of their regular interrogations. "The Empire will not allow this to continue. They will send the Death Fleet." Morrison had learned about the Death Fleet from captured alien databases. It was the Empire's ultimate weapon, a fleet of ships designed to destroy entire planets. It had never been used because the threat of its existence was usually enough to prevent rebellions. "Let them send it," Morrison replied. "We'll be ready." But, privately, Morrison worried. The Death Fleet was composed of ships that made Admiral Krell's royal fleet look small. If the Empire decided to use it, the war would become a fight for the survival of every rebel world. The humans began to prepare for the Empire's ultimate response. They built new ships, trained new soldiers, and formed alliances with alien species throughout the galaxy. They knew that the final battle was coming, and they intended to be ready for it. On Earth, in the underground factories, Dr. Eleni Rodriguez worked on her most ambitious project yet. She was building a weapon that could destroy entire fleets, using principles she had learned from studying alien technology. "It's ready," she announced to the assembled military leaders. "But it's a one-shot weapon. We'll only get one chance to use it." "Then we'd better make it count," replied President Wells. The galaxy was changing. The Zephyrian Empire, which had ruled for 3,000 years, was crumbling. Rebellions were spreading faster than the Empire could suppress them. The humans had lit a fire that was consuming everything the Empire had built, but the Empire was not finished yet. In the depths of space, the Death Fleet was being prepared for deployment. The Empire's rulers had decided that if they could not control the galaxy, they would destroy it. The final battle was coming, and it would determine the fate of every living being in the galaxy. The humans had started this war to defend their home, Now they would have to finish it to save everyone else's. The final battle began in the Zephyrian home system, where the Empire's capital world of Zephyr Prime had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. The planet was a massive fortress, protected by orbital defense platforms and surrounded by the Rhea. Largest fleet in the galaxy. Captain Torres stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching the enemy fleet spread across space like a metal plague. The Death Fleet was everything the intelligence reports had said it would be. Thousands of ships, each one designed to destroy planets, waited in perfect formation around their home world. "Captain," reported Lieutenant Danny Wright, "I'm reading. Over 5,000 enemy vessels. They have us outnumbered 10 to 1. Torres nodded calmly. The human fleet had grown during the war, but they still had only 500 ships. Half of them were captured alien vessels operated by former slaves. The other half were human ships built with hybrid technology. All ships, this is Torres." He spoke into the communication system. "Today we end this war. Today we show the galaxy that tyrants can be beaten." The human fleet was not alone. Ships from dozens of liberated worlds had joined them for this final battle. Former slaves flew alongside their human liberators, united in their desire to see the Empire destroyed. President Wells watched the battle from the command bunker on Earth. She had aged years in the past few months, her hair now completely gray and lines of worry etched deep in her face. The weight of leading humanity through its first galactic war had taken its toll. "Status report," she asked quietly. "The fleet is in position," reported Admiral Morrison. "Dr. Rodriguez's weapon is ready for deployment." Wells nodded. The weapon Elena had built was their secret advantage. It could destroy an entire fleet, but only if they could get close enough to use it. The plan was dangerous and would require enormous sacrifice. Commander Kate Mitchell piloted her ship through the opening moments of the battle. The Vengeance had been modified with the best alien technology they had captured, making it faster and more deadly than any ship in either fleet. "Kate, this is Torres," came the voice over her communication system. "Take your squadron and clear a path to the command ship. We need to get Elena's weapon into position." "Copy that," Kate replied. "Squadron 7, follow me. We're going hunting." Kate's ships dove into the heart of the enemy formation like arrows shot from a bow. They moved with the precision that only months of desperate fighting could teach. Each pilot knew that failure meant the death of everyone they loved. The Zephyrian defenders fought back with devastating firepower. Their ships were larger and more powerful than anything the humans possessed. But the humans had learned something during the war that the aliens never understood. Sometimes the smaller, faster fighter could beat the larger, stronger opponent. Major Sam Collins, now commanding his own ship after surviving dozens of battles, led a group of fighters in a suicide run against the enemy's main battle line. His ship was damaged and leaking air, but he pressed forward anyway. "This is for Amy Foster," he whispered, remembering the young pilot who had died in the first battle near Mars. "This is for all of them." Collins' ship exploded against the enemy flagship's shield generator, creating a gap in their defenses. Other human ships followed through the gap, carrying Dr. Rodriguez and her planet-killing weapon toward the heart of the enemy fleet. On Zephyr Prime, the Empire's High Council watched the battle with growing alarm. They had expected their Death Fleet to crush the rebellion quickly and completely. Instead, they found themselves fighting for their lives against an enemy that refused to be defeated. "How is this possible?" demanded the Supreme Leader, an ancient Zephyrian whose name was feared across the galaxy. "These humans are a primitive species. They should not be able to challenge us." "They adapt too quickly," replied the military commander. "Every battle teaches them something new. They learn from their mistakes faster than we can exploit them." The Supreme Leader's eyes burned with cold rage. "Then we will destroy them all order the planetary bombardment, turn their home world into ash. But the order never reached the fleet. Human infiltrators, led by the former prisoners they had freed, had penetrated the planet's communication systems. The Empire's orders were intercepted, and blocked Dr. Elena Rodriguez worked frantically in the weapon bay of the transport ship, carrying her device. The battle raged around them as human ships fought to protect her vessel. She could hear explosions and feel the ship shaking under enemy fire. "How much longer?" asked the ship's captain, Lieutenant Carl Hudson. 2 minutes, Elena replied, her hands flying over the weapon's controls. "Just give me 2 more minutes." Hudson nodded and spoke into his communication device. "All ships, this is Hudson. We need 2 more minutes. Whatever it takes, protect this ship." The human fleet threw itself between Elena's ship and the enemy with desperate courage. Ships that were already damaged moved into the line of fire, sacrificing themselves to buy the precious time Elena needed Captain Helen Grant's ship. The Ghost was hit by enemy fire and began to break apart. She could have evacuated, but instead, she aimed her dying ship at the nearest enemy vessel. "Tell my family I died free," she said calmly, then cut her communication and completed her final ram attack. "Ready," Elena announced. "Weapon is armed and ready to fire." Torres opened a communication channel to the entire enemy fleet. His voice was broadcast on all frequencies, reaching every ship in the Zephyrian Armada. Admiral Krell was right about. "One thing," Torres said, "this war will end today, but it won't end the way you expected." Elena's weapon fired. It was not a beam or a missile, but a wave of energy that disrupted the fundamental forces holding matter together. The wave spread outward from her ship, passing through the human fleet without effect, but devastating every Zephyrian vessel it touched. Alien ships began to break apart at the molecular level. Entire squadrons simply ceased to exist as the wave passed through them. The Death Fleet, the Empire's ultimate weapon, died in silence as its ships dissolved into cosmic dust. The Supreme Leader watched his fleet disappear from the safety of his underground bunker. For the first time in his long life, he felt real fear. The humans had not just defeated his forces. They had erased them from existence. "Surrender," he whispered. "Signal our surrender." But it was too late for surrender. The human fleet, supported by ships from 100 liberated worlds, descended toward Zephyr Prime like the judgment of history itself. They came not as conquerors, but as liberators. Torres led the landing force that captured the planet's capital city. The Zephyrian defenders fought briefly, but their hearts were no longer in the battle. Their empire was dead, and they knew it. Colonel Morrison found the Supreme Leader in his bunker, surrounded by the ruins of his government. The ancient alien looked up at the human soldier with eyes that had lost all hope. "Why?" the Supreme Leader asked. "Why did you fight so hard? Your world was small and unimportant. You could have surrendered and lived as slaves. Why choose death?" Morrison looked down at the fallen tyrant with something almost like pity. "Because someone had to. Because if we didn't fight, no one would. The war was over." The Zephyrian Empire, which had ruled the galaxy for 3 millennia, collapsed in a matter of days. World after world declared independence, casting off the chains that had bound them for generations. The humans found themselves in an unexpected position. They had started the war to defend their home, but they had ended it as the leaders of a galactic revolution. Delegates from hundreds of worlds came to Earth, asking the humans to help them build a new kind of government. President Wells addressed the First Galactic Assembly in the United Nations building in New York. Representatives from dozens of species sat in the same room, working together to create a future based on freedom and cooperation rather than conquest and fear. "We didn't fight to become rulers," Wells told the assembly. We fought so that no one would ever have to face what we faced. We fought so that every being in this galaxy could live free. The memorial wall in the Pentagon grew longer every day as more names were added. Captain Torres, Major Collins, Captain Grant, Lieutenant Foster, and thousands of others who had died defending freedom. Their sacrifice had purchased liberty for an entire galaxy, but the cost had been enormous. Earth's population had been reduced by half during the war. Entire cities had been destroyed, and it would take generations to rebuild. The humans had won, but victory had come at a terrible price. Torres, now an admiral, stood before the memorial, Wall reading the names of his fallen comrades. Elena Rodriguez stood beside him, her brilliant mind already working on plans to rebuild what the war had destroyed. Was it worth it? She asked quietly. Torres thought of Amy Foster, ramming her, fighter into an alien destroyer. He thought of Helen Grant, dying to protect his ship. He thought of all the brave men and women who had given their lives so that others could be free. Ask the children of 100 worlds who will grow up free, he said finally. Ask them if it was worth it. The galaxy had learned that some things were worth any price. Freedom was one of them. The humans had taught the galaxy that no tyranny, no matter how powerful, could survive when ordinary people decided they would rather die free than live as slaves. The royal fleet had been built to crush planets, but it had met something stronger than planets. It had met the human spirit